In a high interest rate environment where borrowing power is stretched thin, how can investors unlock opportunities and grow their portfolios without hitting financial roadblocks? I'm Tim Graham and the Property Playbook starts now. Welcome to the Property Playbook, presented by Hotspotting, where each episode we empower you with expert insights and trends to thrive in today's competitive market. Today, I'm joined by Louis Velasquez, Director of FinanceBetter, a leading mortgage broking company who guide their clients through complex world of finance and property investment. Louis, thank you so much for joining me today.
How are you?
I'm really good, mate.
Thank you for having me.
Lucky by name, lucky by nature.
I am blessed and thank you.
Yes. So today we're talking, obviously, as mortgage brokers, you're helping refinance people and access equity and all those things. But in a high interest rate environment, I'm hearing all the time that a lot of customers are reaching a limit. How are you helping customers break down those barriers?
I think first and foremost, we educate the clients to be like, okay, cool, what do you really want to do? Is it just do you want to just acquire one or two? Or is the goal here to really grow a full-fledged portfolio? And if it's a full-fledged portfolio, you just can't put things inside your personal names. So the use of trusts, other ways to use different lenders, and how to pitch those lenders for certain growing portfolios has to be done right from the get-go. So that's the moving part right now with a lot of investors. Okay.
So you mentioned trusts. Talk to us about what types of trust structures and I suppose why are there benefits of using trusts?
Yeah. So it's discretionary trusts is predominantly what a lot of investors do use to put property on. It's very, very simple. So the bank looks at trusts as if it was a business per se. So certain lenders exclude those trust liabilities. And because they exclude those trust liabilities, it does maximize borrowing capacity. Now, obviously, depending which lender, that changes regarding policy. But for the most part, some lenders do exclude the liabilities that's sitting inside the trust.
Okay. And I know for a lot of people, they're quite motivated by an interest rate, but I'm sure you're going to tell me that policy is more important. Is that right?
100,000%. So we get a lot of investors do come to us and say, hey, you know what, I want the cheapest rate in the market. Usually those are kind of like your younger investor, first one or two properties. Once they start growing their portfolios, they realize very, very quick that it's not about the interest rates anymore. It's literally about the policy. Interest rate, yes, plays a factor, but if the ultimate goal is to collect, 7, 10, 15, 17, and really grow this amazing portfolio, it's nothing to do about interest rates. It's about going to the lender that says, yes, I will take on those securities, I will take your financial position, and I want to help you grow as well. So that's what we focus on.
Okay, so if I'm investing in my personal name, they're looking at my personal incomes, how does that work inside a trust? So
the trust in itself, there's two types of trust. The first one is the working trust, or effectively the trust that has income generating movement towards it, usually a business, etc. What we say is all it is just a holding trust. So the property is held underneath the trust. The way that income is calculated is your income in your personal names. The liability, however, is held in that trust for that to be excluded, quote unquote, depending on which lender it is. But yes, it's just a holding trust.
Okay, and is this the sort of thing that you're seeing people set up from the first property, or is it usually as they've started to build a larger portfolio and they've reached that cap?
Firstly, I love that question. Right now, a lot of people are getting educated around using trusts now. They're up to their second or third property and they only realize now they're like, I'm actually hitting my limit. So what a lot of people are actually doing is some of them are actually offloading properties in their personal name. Some are opening up trusts and then moving from personal name to trust. Obviously, if you do that, there is stamp duty movements. And some go, well, you know what, I like the properties that I have in my personal names. I'm going to open up a trust now, and then let's see how much I could then go hence after. Obviously, it won't be accelerated as much as it would be if you started from the start, but wherever your journey is probably where we'll navigate you.
Okay. And in terms of how far this can go, like, are you saying if I go and continue to set up trusts, I can more or less just keep on going, or?
Yes.
Really?
You can keep on going as long as you have the contribution to do so. I think
the income's still got to be there to 100%. In one way.
Okay. Borrowing capacity is pretty interesting. When a lot of clients come to us, they're like, how much can I borrow? I go, well, how much can you contribute, right? Like how much equity do you have, how much savings do you have, etc. So if the borrowing capacity is an interesting topic in itself, but as long as you have the contribution to keep tapping in to grow that portfolio, to acquire your next security, your next property, yes, your borrowing capacity could be limitless as long as the contribution is there.
Terrific. Okay, so we've talked a lot about trust and how we can sort of grow portfolios, but what about somebody who's just starting out? I'm starting to see a lot more rentvestors around, so people opting to buy their investment as their first property as opposed to the owner-occupier. Are you seeing the same?
Yes.
Okay.
Everything is yes. No, we're seeing a lot of first-home buyers go into and changing their mindset a little bit. I think they kind of went into the market saying, okay, cool, the government's giving me all these grants, etc. How do I utilize it? And then when they hear about it and they try to utilize it, they're pointed to an area that they probably don't want to be in.
Yeah.
And they don't like that, right? And they like their lifestyle.
So where they can afford, they don't necessarily want to live.
Correct. Or where that government grant allows them to buy because of restrictions, they can't do it, right? And they don't want to change their lifestyle. So what a lot of first home buyers now are coming into the market saying, yes, I'm a first home buyer, but this time I want to buy an investment property. I like where I live. I live with mum and dad, or yes, I rent. And I love my lifestyle now. I don't want to change that, but it's been the last 2 years I've been priced out of the market and I don't want to live in an area that I don't want to live in. So what do I do? And then that's where we're seeing a lot of first home use the use of guarantor or deposits, obviously, from their own savings to then acquire their first and second properties. That has been a massive growing trend. I think last month it's up by 40% for investor lending. A good portion of that component has actually been first-time investors who were first-home buyers of owner-occupiers. Now moved towards investment landscape.
Okay, I want to pick up on something that you just mentioned, which is the use of guarantor loans. So, we're often reading the media headlines that it's so hard to get into the market, and I do believe that for a lot of people it is very difficult, but there are a lot of different ways that you can get into the market now, one being guarantor deposit schemes. Could you talk a little bit about what they are? Yeah,
so guarantors, is like when it comes to family, there's family pledge, also known as a guarantor. I think there's been a big stigma around guarantors just because of education, and that's really all it is. There's servicing guarantors and there is security guarantors. Servicing guarantor is when your parents are attached to you on the loan, and they're helping you service that loan. Security guarantor is when they offer a piece of equity onto their owner-occupied or their investment, as long as there's some equity there. Then you could buy at 100%. Actually, it's 107%, because if you have to pay stamp duty or any other costs, usually, that's where a lot of people are kind of getting themselves into. The stigma around guarantor is the release of guarantor. Now, if you use a great broker, wink, wink, and you use a great bank for whatever reason that is, then what they could do is plan out potentially even a payment plan of extra repayments on the new property purchase to disconnect the guarantor quickly and efficiently. That is the step 2 in going to guarantor family pledge loans.
So for a lot of people wanting to do this, it's a tough question and very difficult to sort of articulate to your parents. Is that something that you help your customers with as well?
Yeah.
Sitting down with mum and dad and taking
Absolutely.
them through?
Yeah, most of the clients
Could you sit with mine?
I would sit with you. yeah, sure. Let's go, mum and dad. Yes, so a lot of the conversation that we have usually is with the person who has intent in purchasing, right? However, because mum and dad are not well aware, a lot of landscape has changed. They probably have been with the same bank for the last 20 years. They don't really know what's going on. Some of them are retired as well, because in security guarantor, some banks, they don't need to have, the parents don't need to have income per se, it's just security. So yes, we have to sit down with them and we treat them and hold their hand. The funny thing though is some of the parents who go as guarantor go, actually I have equity. What else can I do with this? Yeah, my son or daughter is going to buy their investment property. I have some equity here.
Well, there's a generational gap around using equity in general, isn't there?
100%. It's just all about education. The more that a client is educated on all fronts, brother, sister, dog, mum, dad, like you're good. That's really all it is. It's always a stigma. if they don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
So our goal is to, in this whole financial landscape, is just to just dumb it down. It's just to be just like, let's talk simple terms in a way you can understand.
Fear paralyzes people, and with when you're paralyzed, you don't move forward, do you? But you educate, and then with education comes action.
Yeah, 100%. And that whole, I love that word, paralyzed, because even, yes, first home buyers, like the last 2.5, 3 years, they have been paralyzed because the only thing that was being sent and absorbed and news that was to them was got never to do with positivity on how they could enter into a marketplace.
Yeah.
First,
the servicing rates for one were very difficult
100%.
as well. So.
And then now they're like, you know what else can I do? And they're asking proper people for advice, going, actually, I can do this. The people that we speak to, nearly 98% of the people that we speak to go, I didn't know I could do this.
Yeah.
And you're like, what was your source? News articles, random stuff on Facebook. And I'm just like, man, that is not your news. That's not news source.
No, you've got to get your information from the playbook.
Yeah, 100%, exactly.
So, Lucky, one thing that I know that you're, incredibly good at is that buy with no money down. So we've talked about that in terms of Guarantor, but what about for just the everyday investor who thinks, well, I've already got a mortgage at home. How could I possibly afford to have a second mortgage?
Yeah.
How do you help those people?
First and foremost, it's about planning. Planning is a big thing. What property do you want to acquire? Is it going to be yield focused, cash flow, net? Is it going to be capital growth, etc.?
Sure.
Then we start then we start to understand, how equity plays a part to do that. And a lot of the banks or brokers do this, where they go, oh, you got amount of equity. Let's just release all of it. And I have a big take in that. The big take that I have is, why are we doing that? Like, I think if you're going to put a game plan together, if your intent is to buy 3, 4, 5, 6, I think you have to go backwards, then equity, not equity, then forward. And the reason why we say that is because it's all about the planning. Every single equity released, every single dollar is accounted to servicing. And because it's accounted to servicing, you're just going to be very, very smart regarding, if I take all this equity out, can I even afford to purchase a security? Like, what does that then look like? So yes, a lot of the people that do come to us now go, hey, you know what, I've got a little bit of equity, right? They take out, a cash out or equity release to then purchase their next security. Sure. And then that component, because it's used for investment, potentially becomes tax deductible for the client, which is great. I actually had a funny story. A client that did a cash out, and they go, "Oh, I just bought a new car." I was like, "Man, that's not a tax deductible movement." Mate. So, yeah. You just
all right. Well, final thoughts. If you're an investor out there, a first-home buyer, what would you say would be the best tip you could give them in today's market?
Action now.
Action now.
Action now. I think the biggest thing right now is, again, fear paralyzes a lot of people.
Yeah.
But action is stopping you. Action is stopping you. Like, it doesn't matter how good you are or how good I am in not only providing information or actioning those information, but it's actually in the moving parts of saying, yes, I am going to action and I'm going to move forward. That's my biggest takeaway.
Well, it's hard to benefit from everything unless you say yes.
100%.
Lucky, I think not only are you lucky, but I think any of the customers who come and work with you would be lucky too.
I appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
All right, then. Take care.
Well, folks, that's the play for today. This is Ticker. We'll be right back.
You're watching Ticker. We'll have more in just a few minutes.